Hi guys, Gino Curry here with another episode of the photo assignment. I'll be judging by myself on this week, and next week I'll bring a judge, and it'll go back and forward like that. But again, I wanted to thank everyone for all your submissions. It's truly an interesting bunch of photos that were submitted, and I'm really happy. I was really interested in in seeing how you guys would interpret this assignment. It wasn't an easy assignment at all for myself. It was a little bit hard. I had to think a little bit different about, what is a bad image and how can I show that while still having a significant image that would still attract your attention. So the whole goal was simply for you to think about concept. And why concept? You could say it defeats the purpose of photography because photography is a visual medium. But even if your image doesn't have a written context, you still say something through your visuals. And I kind of wanted to really push you to think about concept and what you're trying to say in any medium, even commercial photography, advertising, there's always a deeper message. What are you saying with this image? What is the deeper meaning? Why did you capture this image? Even documentary style photography, it says something. It says something about reality. And I think there's something very significant in that. And I wanted to address it in my own way by bad photography. We got some really interesting stuff. I can't wait to jump into it. But how I'll be judging is basically I'll be looking at your images from a point of view of how different is this image from the norm. How far did you take it? And I'll also be looking at context, or I could also use a title as a written description of what you're trying to say. So I'll be looking closely at both visuals and the context you submitted with it. And we have some pretty interesting stuff. So let's get into the first one. So for the first image was submitted by Mojave FC Dart, and the concept that was submitted with this was, even in darkness, you must sometimes shine. What I like about the visual elements of this image is it's not a normal image you would maybe see pass by on Instagram. But what I really appreciate is kind of taking you into kind of a little universe in a way. Like if you really go close to objects and especially nature, you start seeing a whole ecosystem, a whole cosmos in a way. And, that's the kind of feeling I get, talking about the sun and energy. I definitely see a lot of energy and, like brightness shining in, which relates to his concept. I believe he made it black and white, which I appreciate as well too. And talking about how there's always even in darkness you must always shine. Like for me that relates to, you need to have darkness in order to see the light. You can relate that in a bunch of ways, but for me personally, like you need the downs in order to see the ups, to see the lights. And I kind of relate to that. And even while this image is dark, water symbolizes one of our most important resources, and the sole reason why we have nature and plants, and why plants grow. So there's something very symbolic in this, especially on a level of thinking about the cosmos and like the universe in general. You have the lights, you have the bubbles of water that are kind of reflecting the light. Water is very symbolic to our planet. Without water, we would not exist. So I really appreciate you, taking us very deep into a micro universe that we don't always look at because we're too busy. So definitely appreciate that. The rules that you broke for me were that, you know, for sure it's um, very overexposed at the top. So, you know, in terms of, you weren't afraid to overexpose the image and kind of show us that flaw while still using the light to your advantage. And that's pretty much it. I think it's an overall great image. It relates, and it relates to the context. This is by Mira Mikati. Mira also submitted last week. And before I get into the context that Mira submitted, you know, at first glance, I always like to look at images from first glance and then second glance, because sometimes you can come back 3 days later to an image and it could still tell you, it could still continue telling a story. So at first glance, my eyes fall on the little bug in the center. Um, but since the bug it's kind of blurry, you know, my eyes are then trying to find the sharpness or trying to guide me a little bit more. And since the bug is on the red or pink line, you know, that takes me a little bit to the left on this side. And if I can zoom in, yeah. So it brings you to the texture of the plant. So for me, at first glance, you know, I can't see the bug, so I immediately go to the next best thing, which is the texture of the plant itself. You know, and just thinking out loud here, you know, like, you know, we sometimes only see the things that, you know, that move fast and that, you know, that are shiny, but we don't look at the simpler things, which also has beauty, you know. I've seen this plant before. It's a very beautiful plant, very iconic colors, and so that's what I get out of this at first glance. So what Mira submitted as a context, what she wants to address with this image, is that with fade, there is something to catch you on the other side, even if it's a blurry, little, insignificant fly. Um, so what I think she meant by this is that um, the she actually wants you to look at the fly, which is blurry, you know, basically saying, not because something is blurry and might seem insignificant is that it doesn't have a purpose, which I agree with. She definitely broke the rules. If you're following kind of the guidelines of a bad image, you know, a beautiful or a perfect image, an Instagram image would focus on definitely the main focus would be the little shiny bug. But you know, Mira is basically breaking those rules and telling us, not because it's blurry, which I agree with, doesn't mean it has a significance. So I think it's a great effort. The image definitely complement, or the context definitely complements this image. But good job, Mira. So the next one is a very interesting one too. The next one is by Sebastian, and the way Sebastian shot this was by using the lights of his house and positioning the camera in a way and placing, I think, a trash bag in front of the light source of his house. He created something that was very abstract and subjective to anyone that might view it. His goal was to give us something abstract, and the subtle hints that he mentioned in his context were um, so the house was the light source. he used the plastic bag, and he wanted to open our perspective to our own interpretation. And he gave us subtle hints of female anatomy as well as religious icons. So at first glance, this gives me more of a horror kind of feeling, something you would see in the woods, or let's say you take a picture at night in the woods somewhere, and you develop those images later, and something that wasn't actually there, all of a sudden you see a ghost in your images. So this has a feeling of like having just witnessed a ghost in the forest somewhere. There's a little bit blue at the top as well. If you were going for an image that really pushed the boundaries on like um, for a bad image, this is definitely, you gave us what we asked for. But mentioning the female anatomy, I do see that within the plastic bag. I do see somewhat of lines of somebody standing, maybe a hand being raised. In some of my work, what I usually do, I usually play around with multiple images and lay them on top of each other in a way where it reveals uh, uh, it reveals something. It reveals a singular thing from all those images. So it kind of gives me that that feeling. Let's see. Again, this is very open to interpretations. I salute your creative use of lighting. In my opinion, I would have given it a better connection between the image and the concept, or played a little bit more with the bag. Maybe got a little bit closer to the bag. But this is definitely giving me a nighttime mood. So this is by Sarah. This is a pretty interesting image, and a very comprehensive context submission as well. The title of this image is "The Art of Oversleeping or Empty Pillow Talk." So again, the title of this image is "The Art of Oversleeping or Empty Pillow Talk." Now, to summarize the concept that Sarah submitted, I've met a bunch of people already that kind of count the days that they've been at their house, and Sarah is one of them. She counts 47 days, and with this image, Sarah wants to express the first moments of waking up. Now think about how you woke up today. Maybe you wake up a little bit early and wait for your alarm. There's a certain there's a certain feeling of disorientation when you first wake up, and that's what Sarah really wanted to project in her image. The note also symbolizes, the note could either be positive or negative. If I had to think about the note, the note, seeing a note when you wake up, if somebody was laying next to you, could either be a very positive sign, or a very negative. Positive in a way of, hey, honey, I went off to work, I'll see you later. Or I had a great night, let's stay in touch. Or it could be, I'm leaving you, I had a great night, but, I'm blocking you. So the message is very symbolic, the letter. And I believe if you look very closely, you can't really make it out, but I believe it's Sarah's name on the envelope. Another thing I need to mention that Sarah also submitted with this image is that the cat was, the cat was a happy accident. She didn't place the cat there, and obviously looking at the cat itself is a very unique look. You wouldn't really capture of a cat if, looking a little bit deeper, it even looks like the cat is wearing a little party hat, little kid's birthday hat. Um, but so that was basically what Sarah submitted. Overall, my opinion of this image, it's definitely it's like a big puzzle. Sarah basically, at least how I perceive it, she gave us a big puzzle that we kind of need to decipher. Um, Sarah also mentioned that you can't really see her expression, what she's going through, if she's looking at the letter, if she is just about to notice the letter. But she wanted to channel her emotions, her kind of her state of mind through the cat's reflection or the cat's action. And I kind of see that the cat definitely looks disoriented, like it just woke up. But overall, I do get how this could be perceived by some as a bad image or an insignificant image. I think for some people, composition might work. For others, they might look over it. But what I really like is the triangle that Sarah created, and the cat being exactly at that spot. And she kind of broke the rules by putting the letter exactly in the center of the image. But it starts with the triangle, seeing the cat, kind of feeling that expression, and then kind of your eyes falling on the letter. Overall, I think concept and story definitely relates to definitely gives me like a puzzle feeling. I think the concept works as well too, especially with channeling the emotions through the cat. And let's see. And yeah, I think overall it's a pretty good image, pretty on point with what was asked. So this next image is by Sadiq Yuman, and the title is Cruel World. The concept Sadiq submitted with this image was, we need to build each other up, not break them down with words or judgment by the way they look. So this is a very, the action is a very judgmental action that's being done. You can clearly see that, but I think what's been overdone a little bit is trying to make the character that puts its hand out to kind of forcefully make him look a specific, make him look less fortunate. I think a lot of effort, too much effort, has been put into that. Maybe that was the the approach by kind of creating a bad image in a way. I do think it's still true to the concept, but I also see the image as a transaction taking place. One person judging, the other one kind of doing the opposite, asking for something. So I kind of feel that there's a transactional action happening here. Something that strikes me too is that their hands are kind of connected in a way, and while one might be judging, you could say they have the same skin color, and their hands are kind of connected by the angle it's taken from, which comes back to, you can judge how much, you can judge someone, but eventually in one way or another we are all the same. So Coming back to it, it's a little bit too much effort, but again, that might be the bad photo element of this one. Um, and you know, it's pretty spot on with the context that was given to it. So this next image is by Matt Ryan. There's no title given, but Matt did provide us with a comprehensive kind of his journey, how he came to take this image and kind of what it taught him. So there's no title, but giving you a little bit more insights on the context Matt submitted this with is that Matt lives in the hills around LA, and he figured he'd go for a walk and capture a bad photo. Um, so, and he came across littering. He came across, as you can see, like the white foam box, and that kind of demotivated him. You know, he kind of saw the ugliness of humanity, and he decided to capture that. Right when he was capturing that, the sun started shining, and you know, it basically, like, God was telling him to take an image of that, and so he did. So instead of taking beautiful, like a nice horizontal landscape portrait, you know, most landscape photography that we see is beautiful, right? So he wanted to break those rules and capture something where you couldn't see the horizon. Um, and, you know, the sun kind of guided him towards the foam box. And this is the image he created. So personally for me, you know, if in any other context, I wouldn't even think twice about this image. But since it's not your average photo submission, you know, it definitely started to speak to me in a way, especially if I would see this image without context, you know, without the assignment, the purpose of the assignment, you know, I wouldn't even think twice. You know, it's, you know, at first glance, this is not an interesting image, but if you delve deeper into it, you know, with the doors being open, and Matt kind of describing his journey coming to this image, it starts making more sense. Now, the broken branches could symbolize a broken society. The individual buds, you know, might symbolize us as individuals. Um, and that, what starts growing on me as well too is you start up with the branch at the bottom, and that guides you straight up to the light source, and then, you know, the the focus of the light source then focuses you back um, on the foam box. So what struck me the most, or eventually what I came, you know, where this journey led me to, is that Matt set out to take a bad image, which you could say he achieved. But instead of capturing a bad image, Matt captured a realistic image. And especially with everything, and I don't want to constantly go back to the times we live in, but, you know, I think it's a significant, you know, there's definitely something significant happening that's changing stuff, right? So, but this addresses something, you know, other issues like the issue of littering, the issue of plastic, and the overall issue of, you know, us, you know, making more effort of considering the world and, you know, the planet that we live on. You know, we need to do right by it. So I really appreciate the fact that Matt captured a sense of reality, because some of the best documentary style photographers out there, that's the goal. The goal is to capture a moment right now that addresses something. and it definitely grew on me. So the next image is by Skye Cruz, and the title is Tip the Balance. And the concept that Skye submitted with her image was she wanted to show the contrast between negative and positive spirituality. Now, she believes that we're currently kind of in a more negative spiritual space, that over time, she hopes that it'll transition more into a positive spiritual state. And she did that by a double exposure. She did an extra long double exposure to give it more of a softer feeling to it, as well as she used natural lighting. So what the sense I get from the image is definitely the contrast between what looks to me is more of a kind of a sad place. You can see the hairline over her cheeks, like it's like she's crying, and her hair are the tears. And compared to um, a more self-aware, kind of a more confident gaze towards the viewer. So I do see that contrast, and I also see the image where she's looking straight at us. I also see, besides confidence, I see kind of awakening, like she's just waking up. And awakening can be, very spiritual. You can put that in a very spiritual context as well too. Her beanie also forms kind of a halo around her head, even making it even more of a spiritual kind of feeling. But I definitely get how Skye broke the rules, and how her context relates to the image. Overall, good image. So the next image is by Gino, and the title of this image is "Let Me Be." And the context Gino accompanied with this image is he addresses privacy. Can we only be truly ourselves, in the privacy of our own homes? That's basically, in one sentence, what he described in his context. And, this image, it really links well with the concept. You get roomy vibes, like, it feels that somebody is looking through a small crack in a door, or the door just being like open, just a crack. But I really appreciate this image well. Aesthetically, it really works. I love I'm not sure if it's a cord on the person's body. That's really interesting as well too. I love how that kind of cuts through everything with a strong kind of brighter color. And that also gives a sense of sexuality, I'm pretty sure we all do, things in the privacy of our own homes, where, with our spouses, and, and we know that's private. It feels like a private moment, that it's not for us. I love the lamp in the back as well too. I love the shadows in the background. It kind of feels like it feels less like a prison vibe, but more like, it might be blinds as well, with light shining through it. And I love the blacked out sides. It gives you a sense of, seeing through the crack of a window or a door. But this definitely links well with the context given. Good job, Gino. So the next image is by MJE, who actually won last week's assignment. But she submitted an image with the title Dance of Contrast. And the context she gave us with this is after a rainy day, you always have sun. And she further explained that, no matter how bad stuff gets, it always gets better. And sometimes it might even be much better, after those bad moments. So I think this is a great abstract image. I understand how it could fall in the category of, you know, an image we might not all appreciate, but, you know, composition, it works very, very well. Almost like a painting in a way. I love the fact how, you know, you can kind of make up the landscape. You get, you know, you get a lot of movement from it. You get like the dirt of the window, you know, which kind of works well with, like, you know, if you're thinking about the earth tones, the red at the bottom, you know, it works very well. Um, it definitely paints a picture that can only be completed in your mind, um, and that's particularly what we see in the window. Another thing I really appreciate is the softness of the light inside of what I believe is a car. Extremely soft, very soft light. I think there's a setting like that, you know, those dreamy images. That's almost what I feel from inside, almost like a dream. Um, I think overall this is a great image. It definitely falls in the category of, I would say, a bad photo that, you know, that just works. And I I relate this image more to the title that you gave, which is a dance of contrast, because I do see the contrast between sky, earth, and um, um, yeah, I definitely see the contrast between the sky and the earth and the layers of the crust of the earth. So I definitely see the dance of contrast. I definitely see a lot of movement. Um, so the title fits more with this image than the actual context. But beautiful image. So the next image is by Raphael Juma, and the concept that he described with this image is, but only if you look in your reflection and accept what you see, you can see the true beauty. Now, um, I think this image relates to it because sometimes what's right in front of us becomes distorted, and where we looking at the reflection, I relate that to karma. Whatever you put out there, you shall receive back. And it's in that receiving back, in that reflection, that you see if you did the right thing or not. And I kind of can relate that to this image. The distortion at the top, the reality part. I'm not sure if it was done, you know, I'm not sure if it was a bad camera or a bad shot, or if it was done post. But I do get the gist of reality being distorted sometimes, because that is true. I mean, our nose is right in front of us, but we cannot see it. We can only see it in a reflection. So I do get that if something is extremely close to us, and if we can see this spiritually, mentally, like in objects. Um, but I do get that gist of using the distortion to the advantage of his context. Um, I like the concept, and I think it works well with the visuals. All right, guys. So these are the three finalists: Sarah, Matt Ryan, and MJE. And the third place is Sarah's image. Now, why, in the first place, why Sarah's image? I think Sarah gave a very comprehensive context to it, and she really guided us through her thought process. Like she really wanted to create a disoriented, just waking up moment where you don't know if it's good or bad, if it's going to be a good or a bad day. Very symbolic elements, from the triangle to the cat to the expression of the cat reflecting her emotions, and the letter. Extremely thought-provoking. But what really did it for me was, the elements of putting a puzzle together. Even without a context, this would be a puzzle to someone. And it could also be perceived as a bad image. You totally cropped out the person. The letter is exactly in the center. You worked with a bad image, and the cat was a happy surprise. So congrats, Sarah. You did an amazing job. So for number 2, and that's also going to reveal the winner, is MJE. MJE won number 2 simply because MJE gave us something that also could be perceived as a bad image, but it's also a great image. From a beautiful play on abstraction, from the softness of inside of the car, the way it works with the title, A Dance of Contrast. This feels like, this is a great image. It's that could be perceived as a bad image. So great composition, love the layers, definitely keep it up, and congrats on second place. So that leaves Matt's picture. So why the hell would I select this as the winning image? And I'll happily tell you why. Because, besides it being, the concept being a bad photo, Matt took us on a journey. And I think what's really important is that Matt set out to capture a bad image for us by not, having a landscape composition where you see the horizon. But what ended up happening is that, the sun came in, the sun guided him through it, and instead of giving us a bad picture, he gave us a realistic picture of that reflects, that reflects, could be a reflection of our bad actions on the earth. And I think that's extremely powerful as a concept. Imagine this image being printed large, white frame, big white wall. It would people would definitely stop, and it would be a talking point. It would offer a discussion, and that discussion would be, it would be related to how we should do more, to not have people litter, and it could be an X amount of issues we need to solve. But it definitely addresses a specific point, and it's a real story, and Matt really used his environment to his advantage. He let the elements of his surroundings guide this image and tell the story. It's almost like, like the sun or the earth itself waited for the right moment for Matt to capture this, and he did, and I stand behind it. So Matt, I will be printing this image for you and sending it to LA. But great job, great concept for everyone. Thank you so much. This assignment was really for you to flex those muscles, and I think Matt proved it by starting a discussion. What are you trying to say, and what do you want people to talk about? It's extremely important. Thinking about, after you die, what are the elements you're going to leave? Don't you want people to talk about your work, or don't you want to leave something behind that addresses a specific issue, or addresses something beautiful that you find of the world? It's leaving stuff behind for people to talk about eventually in your voice. So that was the whole concept, guys. I was really happy with all the submissions. I was kind of scared, bad picture, but I really appreciated all your submissions. I'm going to be announcing the next assignment soon. So look out for that. Stay creating, stay creative. And, you know, this really does a lot for me in order of giving back to you guys. So, so looking forward to seeing more of your images. All right, guys, till next time.